front. Thurston to choose from with Coote. He hits it, he's got it! He's got the field goal! He's got the premiership! And probably rugby league immortality.
With just one wish, and how you dared to dream it could feel like this. Well, it feels like this. It's happening now, right this minute.
He goes the length of the field. Horsey, he's over. They get it out wide and they will score. This is incredible. That is as good as you will see.
Kia ora and welcome to another episode of The Ditch. I'm Madison Bartlett.
I'm Adam Blair, and let's take a look at what's coming up on this episode.
This week, we're checking in with an OG helping educate the next generation, Super League icon and St. Paul's old boy, David Solomona.
Any organisations out there want to hire me to do some stuff, I'm happy to do it.
And from one OG to another, we are lucky enough to be joined in studio by the legendary Kiwis, Manly and Queensland coach, Sir Graham Lowe.
I love rugby because I'm 77 and I could still play it.
We're very lucky this week to be catching up with the legend Sir Graham Lowe.
Damn, that fella can talk so much rugby league, can't he?
He can.
He's a legend, an icon. What a great guy to have on our studio.
Speaking of legendary, let's check out some legendary highlights.
I've waited ages for the NRLW and finally it arrived with a bang. But before we talk about the girls, let's talk about the Wars.
That's right, the Warriors were given a mighty scare by some heroics from the Raiders, but in the end, it was SJ the cool guy who iced the game.
For the win! For the win! Johnson!
Sorry about third place.
The ladies at the night started their season with a win because they knew the key to victory. A bunch of massive hits.
As she's shown us throughout the afternoon, as Berry, she gets clobbered.
Plus, it was good to see Tyler able to get a try on debut.
Nathan Wong will score for the Dragons. What a fight back here from the Red V.
Mean Pukana. Sorry about it.
Simonson must have thought he was playing against the Dallas Cowboys as he heard the quarterback calling from the nosebleeds.
Now they're going under the legs.
He'd make a better running back. Sorry about it.
Our friend Bo was wicked coming back from injury, helping the Tigers go beast mode and score 6 tries in 20 minutes.
Out for 50, Welsh. Brilliant, Leanne Tafanga.
Now that's the way to start the season. Sorry about it.
My awesome mate Matty scored a debut double for the Raiders and became the highest try scorer in NRLW history.
And Matty Bartlett is now the outright leading try scorer in NRLW history.
Can I have your autograph?
No way.
Oh, sorry about it.
And finally, how about the girls bringing their A game with some of those try celebrations?
Zali Faye shows us why. And what about this? Let's do the limbo.
I hope Try July never ends. Sorry about it.
Sir Graham Lowe, a legend of our beautiful game, rugby league.
What a privilege it is to have him in studio to share his wealth of knowledge.
Let's take a look back at some of his career highlights.
For many of us rugby league loyalists who live and breathe our amazing game, it is very hard to ignore the contribution tonight's studio guest has given to our beloved game. From his humble beginnings in 1977, when he coached the mighty Otahuhu Leopards to Fox Memorial glory, and then moving across the ditch where he became a household name. He has conquered Kiwi teams to triumph against some of the game's greats, and he is renowned for moulding ordinary players into immortals. In the 80s, he conquered Britain as Wigan coach, and in the 90s achieved the unthinkable by being the only Kiwi ever to coach at State of Origin level and win a series. He is a true warrior, a proud Kiwi, and a servant of the game. And it is a huge privilege to have a dream maker in our midst.
What a career that was. We're lucky enough to have the man himself, Sir Graham Lowe. Lowie, welcome into our whare, into our garage, brother.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I've been looking forward to it.
Straight off the bat, tell me, how did it all begin?
You know, sometimes I just wonder, but way back in the day, 1973, I got asked by Otahuhu to coach the Otahuhu 8th grade. And I thought they'd scoured the planet looking for a good coach. And it wasn't until I realised that they'd asked about 100 other people. No. But I started with these boys and at Murphy Park in Otahuhu, and it was just fantastic. It taught me, you know, I'd never considered coaching. And like many thousands in New Zealand, volunteer coaches that keep all sport going, I became one of them. And I was lucky. I had a good group of boys, and a number of them went on to play for the Kiwis. And the best thing for me personally is those boys taught me about myself, and they showed me what I wanted to do.
You coached at the highest of highest levels when it comes to coaching, NRL, you know, Origin, New Zealand. Why did you want to be a coach?
It was never in my plan. You know, I always thought I loved rugby league for a start. I played rugby league from when I was 5 years old, and I just loved it. My mother and I thought I was a great player, and I should have been a Kiwi, but the selectors didn't think the same back in those days. So I was just a plugger for Otahuhu. You know, the few games in Premier grade and reserve grade in and out, always a little bit too small and maybe a bit too young. But after a number of injuries, and I wanted to start my own business. I'm an auto electrician by trade. So I started my own business in Otahuhu, and I had to stop footy then because just too many injuries, and you know, you had to be at work, working for yourself. But just out of the blue, I got asked by Otahuhu, by a guy, Glenn McManus, who's a famous name in the Otahuhu club. And he asked me if I'd coach Otahuhu 8th grade. And so I thought about it overnight, bought myself a new tracksuit, clipboard, and away I went. And that's how I started.
You would have had so many great memories throughout your career. So what are some of the fondest memories you remember?
I think, Adam, thinking back on it, particularly asking me how I got into it, you know, I found myself standing out in the middle of Murphy Park one day thinking, what do you do? When you're a coach, what do you do? Because no one really gets, there's no apprenticeship to it. No one gets told how to coach or advised. So I wrote a letter. So I wrote to all the big sporting franchises I could think of. I wrote to Liverpool Soccer, I wrote to Real Madrid, I wrote to Liverpool, I wrote to Australian Cricket, I wrote to the Dallas Cowboys, I wrote to all these people all around the world. And I basically said, my name's Graham Lowe, I coach Otahuhu 8th grade, what should I do? Basically, that's what the letter was. And because this is way back before email and all that stuff, this is back in 1973. And then about 2 months later, maybe 3 months later, I can still see it now in my letterbox. There was a white envelope, and it had Par Avon on one side, which I knew it was email, and I knew it was airmail. And it had Dallas Cowboys. So I opened it up, and there was a letter there from Tom Landry, who was the Dallas Cowboys coach. And I kept in touch with Tom right up till the mid-'80s, right up to when I was coaching the Kiwis. And so a lot of stuff, he was fantastic. We only ever spoke on the phone. I never met the man personally. I never spoke to him on the phone. He invited me to the Dallas Cowboys pre-season camp, the summer camp in 1984. But in 1984, I was coaching the Kiwis, and the Kiwis had never been beaten Great Britain in New Zealand, and they were touring. So I had to make my mind up whether to go over to England and have a look at the players over there, or go to the Dallas Cowboys camp. And I just wanted to make sure the Kiwis won, so I chose that path. And luckily, we beat Great Britain that year and won the series.
I know by listening to you, you're passionate about rugby league. I know you would watch what's going on at the moment. What do you think of the game itself in general?
I think the game is fantastic. I think, you know, the crowds are just brilliant. It's been through a tough patch, you know, like everywhere with COVID. But the leadership, you know, the leadership from the NRL was just outstanding. They never dropped a beat, really. It was really difficult for the Warriors, and you know, everybody knows how hard it was, and you felt for them. But they all got through it. And actually, looking at the Warriors playing now and how they are, I think it's probably added to the fabric of who they are, and they can draw on that in the future. So, but I think the game's in good hands. It's in great leadership. The game, the crowds they're drawing is just remarkable, really. It's just fantastic. It's just really fantastic. If you're a league person, you've got to keep reminding your rugby mates about it, don't you? You know, so I just think it's great.
We talk a lot about our Māori and Pacific players, especially on this show. Do you think the NRL is doing enough for our Māori and Pacific players, or could they be doing anything more?
I think they probably are doing enough. I'm not sure. There's probably always stuff they can do more, but the thing that really, Matty, pleases me is anyone from New Zealand who's got a rugby league or rugby union background, anyone who watches the game closely knows that the NRL is just absolutely, the Maori and Pacifica players are born to play NRL. They're born to it. They've got natural flair. You know, they usually have a bit of size and strength about them, but the thing is they've got natural flair. I think the game went through for a little while over there in the NRL, went through a little bit of the coaches trying to coach that flair out of the players, and I think the game suffered from it, and also a lot of the players suffered from it. But overall, they seem to have got their act together, and look at the Warriors now. You know, with the coach they've got now, I've never met the man, but just listening to him, the interviews I've heard him on TV, and I think he's got the connection with the public, and most of all, he's got every one of those Warriors players playing to their potential. And as a coach, that's all you can ask for.
What about when you went over in your early days, you know, the diversity, having different cultures, obviously being home and then going over there, you got your Indigenous boys, you got your Australians, you got your New South Wales, Queensland guys, then you got your Samoan, your Pacifica boys and Māori. Yeah. How did you adjust to that, or back then, or did the game do anything to help you understand that?
I think there was well, I had a bit of a intro initially with Norths in Brisbane back in the early 80s. So I went up there and coached in 1979, coached them till 82. So I had a bit of an introduction up there. They used to have 2 Winfield Cups back in those days, one in Sydney and one in Brisbane. But going to Manly and seeing the different cultures and the different, you know, all the different connections, I always simplified the whole thing because to me there was only one culture that mattered, and that was a football culture. And everybody had to fit into that. You made sure you respected everybody that was there, no matter where they came from, what they did. Everybody deserved and got that respect. And then the only other thing we focused on was the football culture. You had to have the football culture, which has its own language in itself. So it has its own language, its own virtues and values, and I think that overrides all cultures in the world, to tell the truth. You can get countries anywhere in the world that are at war with one another, and yet they'll play soccer or tennis or a sport against one another. So the language of sport, I think, is a special language that encompasses all cultures.
I'm David Solomona from St. Paul's College, and this is The Ditch.
And bring up with a great ball up to Solomon. Next to the post. The winner was quickly down to
So I work for the NRL in a department called Wellbeing Education, and my role is player engagement, and I work primarily around engagement with NRL players, but also do Pacifica programs and faith space, so I work with the club chaplains. Yeah, just came and run some, one of the mandatory educations, which is called theatre sports. I take actors in and we deal with social issues with the players and try and educate them on ways to deal with particular situations they might get themselves into. Obviously, things are a lot different from when I was playing. Issues around social media or just even media coverage, and then also I guess just the makeup of the game, just understanding that from a skin colour kind of context, the game looks a lot different. The big topic we're talking about is the relationship there. Making sure players actually sit there and go, man, that's really relevant to me, that aligns with who I am, that, man, I understand what that means, as opposed to sitting in an education session and thinking like, bro, this is a waste of time, like this does not relate to anything that I do in my life. I think as a game, we have to kind of evolve with the way the game looks, and hopefully players enjoy what we're doing as well. For me personally, I think storytelling is a lot easier, you know what I mean? Like storytelling is a lot easier for players. It's a lot easier for players to sit there and actually engage in conversations as opposed to putting up a PowerPoint. And Man, I don't know anyone that likes doing that stuff, you know what I mean? So for me, it's a lot easier to present and it's a lot easier to engage with players. So I know, again, looking at in particular this Warriors playing group, a lot of the players look like me, and hopefully they enjoy learning the way I do as well.
I understand. You're not actors. How do you reckon they went?
Programs like this, education like this, yeah, we didn't have any of this when I first came in. Everything was strictly football. It creates better conversations. It allows people to be more inclusive and allows the game to be more aware of different people within environments. And I think studies have shown that the more we take care of people, the better they are for the game. Although it's relevant to football players, it's also relevant to any of us. Everyone deals with issues around social media, drugs, gambling, addictions, mental health. So I think if we can get players to advocate for some of those important issues, especially in our communities, I think for us as a game, we're doing a great thing, and not just educating players, but educating our communities.
If you could give some advice to some of the younger kids coming through, what would you say to them?
I'd say nothing comes easy. That one of the things, and it's one of the principles we have, is put up with the pain. It's just one of the principles. And what that actually means is, if you have to give your best not to win, you've got to give your best just to get a chance of winning, because the opposition's given their best as well, aren't they? So any kid that wants to come in and play has got to realise it just doesn't happen. You've got to work hard. And just because you work hard, just because you give 100%, doesn't guarantee you the right to success. It only gives you the opportunity. And I learned that, if I've got time to tell you, I learned that in a savage way. When I coached the Kiwis in 1985, we had 3 tests against Australia that year. And the first one, they beat us 26-20 over in Brisbane. The referee was a Frenchman, that's all I'll say. And but we came to the second test, so after that game, I was able to get the video and show our players that there were certain times in the game, just for might have been 30 seconds or 40 seconds, where some of our players, 2 or 3 together, might have dropped off a bit of intensity. And during that period, Australia sensed it, took advantage of it, and that's how they came through us. And so that we had the skill that Australia had, I thought, but they beat us with their intensity and their giving 100%. So our theme for the week was, if we give 100%, we'll win this game. So that was the whole thing. And I always remember, because I came up with a silly name, Tempo. And so if somebody looked along and someone was having a bit of a bludge, someone just had to yell out Tempo, and for the next 30 seconds, everybody sort of grew another leg or whatever and tried that little bit harder. But anyhow, our fellas went out and they played, every single one of them for 80 minutes, played 100%. Absolutely fantastic. We were winning the game all the way through. Got to the last minute of the game, one of our guys makes a mistake, drops the ball. They pick it up. Wally Lewis got hold of the ball, fired it out to John Rebo, the guy who used to play on the wing in those days for Australia, and they beat us at Carwell Park. And it's the only time in my career, or ever since, that I've sensed the feeling. It was like a death. It was like a death. Though Carwell Park was absolutely jam-packed, so it was about 20,000. The place only held probably 10,000, but there was 20,000 plus there. And everything was silent. Everything was silent. So I had to stay on the field, do a couple of TV interviews, and then I went into our dressing room, and I opened up the door, and I looked in, and I thought, what have I done? What have I done? What mistake? And I could see it straight away, because there was guys, our hard and tough, experienced players, guys like Kurt and Dane Sorensen and Kevin Tamati and Howie, tears in their eyes and crying because they thought they let me down, let themselves down, and I all of a sudden realised the mistake I'd made, and it was me. So I had to say, listen, boys, look at me. Basically, it took a while to do, but a snapshot of it is, I just said, listen, fellas, I apologise. This is my fault. This loss is on my shoulders because I told you the wrong thing. I told you, and I guaranteed you, if you gave 100%, we'd win the game. And I didn't realise I must be too inexperienced. Giving 100% is only going to give us the opportunity. So we didn't give Australia the respect they deserved. And we thought if we put in 100%, we'd win. And we beat them 18-0 the following week, but we lost that game, and it was a mess. It was just a thing that I learned that was galvanised into my heart now forever. But the players all learned from that as well. So I learned far more from my players than what they ever did from me, I think.
Graham, do you think that New Zealand will ever see rugby league as they do rugby? We're always kind of seen as second best.
I think it's a big call, and rugby is in the fabric of our history and framework. Why, I don't know. I mean, I love rugby because I'm 77 and I could still play it. Maybe in different coloured pants. But no, I think a lot of responsibility for this is on the shoulders of the Warriors, because the Warriors are the team that's there every week. They're probably, if everyone was honest, they probably watched more than rugby union is, and on the TV. But I think that we do have to get that chip off our shoulder a little bit, and the easiest way to do it is to keep winning, and to keep showing excellence with what you do, because if you boil it right back, rugby union is part of the colonialism that was around the world, and wherever that colonialism went, rugby union started. And rugby league was started in the north of England. They played one game, but the guys who were poorer, getting out of the pits to play the game, when they got hurt playing rugby league, they couldn't work. They couldn't get back down the pits and work, and so they wouldn't get any money. And yet the wealthier guys who were playing rugby union could keep playing. It made no difference because it was a class system. It was a class system. And if we're very, very honest, that's still there in society now. There's people who watch rugby union, and you say, why wouldn't you watch rugby league? Oh, no, I wouldn't watch that game. You say, why? They've got it's been bred into them. It's a generational thing but we all know, and we've all got mates who are great rugby union people. Like my closest mates are all rah-rahs, so that's just how they are. But the thing is, as long as we keep knowing that which game is, the game of rugby league offers anybody the opportunity to pick up the ball and run with it, and it offers anybody to tackle someone else. And as kids, you see some kids playing, they never touch the ball, playing rugby union. They never touch it, or their parents are very proud and excited for them, and I understand all that. But really, the game, in my view, does not offer the opportunities that rugby league offers, and you might think I'm exaggerating, and I know a lot of the viewers watching this will think, what a lot of crap, but I'm telling you it's true. You were a second-class citizen. The All Blacks were given far more opportunities than the rugby league players were. Look, if you played for the Kiwis, in most cases, if you went on tour, you didn't get paid. Your bosses didn't pay you. In most cases in rugby union, they did. They got paid, or clubs that have whip rounds and things like that. So there's always been that little bit of, and that's what's different about us all. It's no good worrying about it. You just got to get on with it. I still now, to this day, I have a look at rugby union and I just pick guys out. There's young players. There's so many good young rugby union players that would make fantastic Maori and Island boys who would make fantastic rugby league players, but we'll just see what happens. But I'm a bit one-eyed, I know that.
Obviously, we're very lucky to have you and privileged to have you in our whare this week on the show. So thank you very much for joining us. Before you leave, is there any last words of advice that you have for our players, our coaches, our viewers, anyone at all?
Well, firstly, it's my privilege to be here, sitting here with you, and particularly to be able to talk to Adam. Adam's a player that I've admired for many, many years. Adam, I wish I had the opportunity to coach you, I'll tell you that. But thank you. As far as any words of wisdom, I think listen carefully to what everybody tells you. Listen, never block your ears off. Listen carefully, and I think you can learn a lot from history, and the future gives us hope. keep those two things. History's from the past, the future is for hope. And you can't live in the past, but you've got to give yourself hope all the time. And rugby league is a platform for young people, young kids, who might be wanting, they might be led away from they follow dickheads, and they get led on the wrong path. If you get involved with a sport like rugby league teaches about teamwork, it teaches you about yourself, and it teaches you a discipline from the coach that'll help you in later life.
Send you that number, that doctor you've been asking for.
Names at different times.